I understand that people can hate on him, but Rob Zombie is one of my favorite directors of all time. Of course, not all his movies are perfect, but they just satisfy something I really enjoy in horror. He consistently has some of the best cinematography and soundtracks, even if half of his frequent collaborating actors aren't the best. Some of them are genuinely great. If you can't tell, I'm a big fan of this man's films, and today I'm going to rank all of them from worst to best. Yeah, the new movie on this list, The Monsters, is Rob Zombie's worst movie to date. Rob Zombie's movies are a lot of things, but funny is not one of them. This movie is just unfunny, frankly, and I hate to say this, boring. It also has no plot. It's literally just a 2 hour long pilot episode for a series that will never exist. The visuals are kind of cool, and of course, when you have some really strong talent, some of the performances are good. Sadly, all the main characters give pretty bad performance. Out of his consistent cast members, Jeff Daniel Phillips and Sharp Moon Zombie are probably the weakest ones. Of course, they've both given great performances in the past, but they just don't work as these characters. It's not the worst thing ever made, but it had so much missed potential. Three from Hell is by far the weakest of the trilogy, but it's still solid. Obviously, the thing that everyone talks about is the absence of Sid Haig, which kind of kills a lot of this movie. I kind of disagree. Personally, I think that Richard Brake is the best actor within Rob Zombie's returning cast. He still does a great job here, but it's lacking the most memorable and iconic character of the series. Also, this movie is killed by the fact that it ruins one of the greatest endings in horror movie history. It ruins it. It makes it feel meaningless and gives absolutely no explanation to how the survival of the characters is possible beyond it just is. But for a movie that has absolutely no reason to exist, it's really good. When I first watched 31, I hated it. About a year or so later, I really disagree with where I was at the start. 31 is good. It's not great. It's not at all. And all five of the six villains in this are some of the most obnoxious characters I've ever seen in a movie. This is probably just almost all of his worst lines that Rob Zombie's ever written. But there's also so much good stuff here that it almost makes up for it. First off, Doomhead is maybe the best character Rob Zombie's ever written. Everything involving Richard Brake in this is just fantastic, and he gives just an amazing and terrifying performance. The opening scene in this movie is perfect. It sets the mood amazing, and it's legitimately terrifying. And yeah, he's the only good thing with this movie. But he is so good that it like just makes up for how bad some of the stuff in it is. Rob Zombie's debut, House of a Thousand Corpses, is a solid movie. Yeah, both the best and worst part of this movie is that it feels like a carnival ride. You don't go to this movie for the plot or the characters, you go for a wild experience of a film, and that's kind of creative. But it also means that you don't really care about anything in it. This was also Sharon Moon Zombie's first movie, so her acting here is just not up to anything that she's done after, which is not saying a lot. I know that I've mostly been saying negative things, but I do really like this movie. It's just a fun movie with no plot, and sometimes that's just what you want in a movie. Halloween 2007 is one of the best remakes of the 2000s and early 2010s horror movie remake craze. Of course, it doesn't hold a candle to the original, but it is still fantastic. The first 30 minutes of this is the scariest part of any of the movies in the Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Nightmare on Elm Street franchises. I mean, in fact, this movie is just the most disturbing of those big three by far. The problem is I'm just not a fan of the second half. The nearly 10-minute chase scene is terrible, especially since it's just around like a small area, not like something like The Amazing The Shining or another one of just amazing chase scenes in movie history. Otherwise, it's good and a hell of a lot better than some of the other remakes. It's just not a perfect movie, but it is still really good for what it is. So a really big jump in ratings here. We're already up to the 10 out of 10s. This movie's just perfect. The Devil's Reject and everything beyond this point are all top 30 movies for me. And if I can say anything, this is the best movie that Rob ever wrote. Wrote, not directed. The ending is genius, and so is pretty much all of the movie before it. The only thing holding The Devil's Rejects back from being even higher is this subplot with the traveling musician goes a bit too far in some scenes. Definitely did not need to show some of the stuff in that. I think the best part of this movie is just how every character is so unlikable you can't pick a side, and the movie just destroys your moral compass. But yeah, The Devil's Rejects is considered his best movie for a reason. It is just that good. But in my opinion, he made two movies that are even better than it, which is really impressive. Alright, I get why everybody hates this movie so much. With that being said, I love this movie. It's my favorite slasher movie of all time. I love Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. To get it out of the way, the theatrical cut of this movie really isn't all that good. If you want the full experience, just watch the director's cut. This is the only slasher sequel I've ever seen that, if you remove like the White Horse stuff, is actually accurate to how I think that a sequel to one of these movies would go. The characters aren't happy. They're not just like a little bit okay with mild inconveniences every once in a while, scaring them like in honestly in Friday 13th Part 5. They're legitimately devastated by this event. It is actually accurate. If you remove some of the White Horse stuff, which I agree makes little sense in the movie, it's so accurate. And I know I've been going on about that a lot, but it's just otherwise too. It's amazing. Has debatably Brad Dourif's best acting, one of the most just like devastating scenes in horror movie history. Yeah, I also love the way that they handled Loomis in this. I know that a lot of people hate it, but I think it was really good. Yeah, this is one of the most overhated movies of all time, and while I do totally love it, it is not my favorite on the list. That's just The Lords of Salem is my favorite Rob Zombie movie. Yeah, I don't really have a single major negative here, aside from just small nitpicks. Otherwise, this is one of my favorite movies ever made. I love the storyline, the atmosphere. The soundtrack is rivaled by few others, and in my opinion, this is one of the most gorgeously shot films ever made. Sorry that I don't have much to say. I just think this movie speaks for itself. It's not perfect at all, but I really think that it's a masterpiece and his best movie.